It is time to talk to Ashley Chastain Woodard, head coach of Gamecock softball, ahead of this weekend's regional actions. They'll be back out in California for the UCLA Regional. Coach, appreciate you taking the time as always. Know you're very busy with practice this morning. Different energy for practice this week, business as usual. What's it like out there in the field today?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I'm glad I was able to hop on here before we leave for California. I am in the middle of practice right now. We've got a few minutes left. We've been going live all morning, just making sure that we get live at-bats for our hitters and our pitchers and our defense, because it's been so many days since we've played, which is a little different for us this time of the year. So the energy is great. We are so excited to go to the West Coast and play UCLA in their regional. I do have to say we've been talking a lot about Fullerton. You know, that's our first game and just not overlooking them to get to UCLA, but we are pumped. The energy is really high, and I am actually actively in practice right now. So the gals look great.
What are you literally doing right now at practice? Like, is there a glove on your other hand or?
I am standing in the visitors' dugout, so there's no one super close to me, but I'm standing in the visitors' dugout. We've been live scrimmaging all morning. We've got 3 outs left, but they look awesome. They look really refreshed, really recovered, because we've had some extra days, you know, just to give them some time off, which we've seen as such a gift and a blessing going into the regional. They look really sharp, really eager, and I think we're just ready to get to the West Coast.
Well, I know when this season started, you were pretty excited about being able to go out there for the Mary Nutter Classic, and now here we are, end of year, back to the West Coast. Do you think that trip and just knowing the logistics and just how that works for your players is something you guys can kind of lean on as you go through a similar process, going out there, dealing with the travel, the time change, and all those different aspects?
Yeah, I mean, I think looking back on the season, now that we know our fate of going to the UCLA Regional, it was awesome that we played in the Mary Nutter. You know, we've done that flight. You know, we've been on that time zone. We're going to have a couple of days to adjust to the time zone. So we're going out tonight. We're flying out this evening, and we're going to have all day Wednesday and all day Thursday to adjust to the time difference, which is pretty significant in such a short amount of time. So I think it's wonderful that we went out and competed in the Mary Nutter in February and just had that experience now going into the UCLA Regional. So, you know, we're a different team now than we were then. You know, I think we're playing a lot better here now than we were in February. So really excited about it. And, you know, for the people that were a part of the program last year, I think it's, you know, a little fate, you know, a little bit of a revenge tour to go out to UCLA and get a shot at them. You know, we did play them in February and lost by a run at the end of the game. And, you know, I think there's, you know, just a ton of chip on the shoulder with a lot of our players that were on the team last year.
Coach, it's Chris. Thanks for taking time to join us here during practice. You mentioned playing your first game against Fullerton. Can you give us what you've seen from them, their scouting report, what you've learned, and what that matchup's going to be like?
Yeah, you know, they've got a lefty slapper at the top of the order that has a really, really high average. We've scouted her. She's high contact, high hits. And overall, their offense is pretty fast. I think they try to create a lot of havoc around the bases and just, you know, really try to push the envelope with their speed and taking the next base. To be honest, scouting them, they reminded me a lot of Duke in that way, you know, that we played earlier in this year and that we have a lot of history with. So, you know, I think we looked at their team sheet. I feel like strength of schedule-wise, ours is a much different experience strength of schedule, you know, in our conference and everything than Fullerton has seen. They do have a couple quad one wins, but really, really early in the year in February. You know, and since then they haven't been in too many of those opportunities and those matchups. So, you know, I think the grind and the adversity of the SEC and everything that we've experienced through the year has really prepared us, you know, for postseason. And, you know, I just think we expect Fullerton to be pretty fast and almost try to wreak a little havoc on us. So we've just got to make sure that we're really solid defensively.
Again, Ashley Chastain Woodard joining us here for a couple more minutes on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Again, about 3 more minutes here. You mentioned, you know, the team feeling refreshed after having a few days off after your exit from the SEC tournament last week. What is that balance between having time off and having too much time off? We've seen then like Major League Baseball where you have teams that get, you know, a couple days off between the end of the season and the start of the postseason to where sometimes they suffer there. What is that balance of having time off versus having too much time off?
Yeah, you know, we as a staff really talked a lot about that going into last week when we came back from the SEC tournament, unfortunately too early. So we flew back Wednesday from Lexington, and then we took the rest of the day Wednesday off because we got back pretty early in the day, and then, then on Thursday and Friday, we took kind of a fall approach, a little bit of a one-on-one. We had a lot of hitters come in individually, a lot of defenders come in individually, throughout the morning because we don't have finals, we don't have school anymore. So, the only thing we're doing is playing ball, which we love. So Thursday and Friday, we were able to kind of spend some one-on-one, a lot of attention to the player individually. So it wasn't quite as much time for them. And then we took Saturday off because of graduation. We had a lot of them that walked on Saturday, which is a really special experience. Sunday, we had more of a team practice with the selection show. And then we had team practice yesterday. And then today we went more live, getting live ABs and putting ourselves back in the batter's box and in the circle on the field and competing because we just didn't want too much time to pass with our pitchers not seeing hitters. So that's what we're doing today before we leave.
Coach, we got about a minute and a half before we end the show here, but what, if you had to pinpoint a thing or two, what is the key to South Carolina softball returning back to Columbia next week with a regional win?
I think for us, we got to beat Fullerton the first game, which we're more than capable of doing. But, thinking to UCLA, I think us being able to pitch against their offense is really going to be the key for us. So us being able to really combat Megan Grant in the 2-hole the year that she's had, Jordan Woolery in the 3-hole protecting her. We have a ton of experience with those guys, but I do think, a Jory Hurd, Emma Friedel performance against, their offense is going to be the key for us.
Coach, we appreciate the time as always. Thank you for allowing us to join you during practice there. And certainly wish you the best of luck, safe travels out there, and can't wait to see what happens this weekend.
Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate the support, and we will steal it all the way from the West Coast.
Absolutely. Again, Ashley Chastain Woodard there of Gamecock softball. They get started on Friday night, taking on Cal State Fullerton at 7:30. You can watch that game on ESPN Plus. And guys, as she mentioned there, obviously we know about UCLA, Cal State Fullerton, and Cal Baptist, two very capable teams they'll have to focus on as well to get through this regional. And hopefully this time next week, maybe talking to her once again about looking ahead to the Supers after that.
Yeah, you got a couple other 40-win teams on this thing, man, so you can't overlook any of those guys. But I'm excited to see what happens. This is definitely a battle-tested team at this point. Not just the SEC, the teams they've played out of conference. You look at where they are once this tournament was released, and their top 16 hosts, their other 2 seeds. Like, this has got to be one of the most difficult schedules you could possibly put together. So they're going to be battle-tested. I think, once again, we've talked about it all season long, Tyler. Winning those key moments, the 2 or 3 or 4 key moments that are the difference in winning or losing a close game will be the difference in this regional, I think, for South Carolina.
Again, it all gets started on Friday. We'll keep you updated on that as the week goes along.